All right, John, we're on.
Hey, we're kind of like lambs. Hey, we on?
Yeah, we're on. Let me see if I can get this going while we're chitter chattering.
So good morning. Catch the Vision broadcast was technically, we started talking about this a long time ago on leadership, right? And so I was saying this to Mike, the last two videos, broadcasts, podcasts, whatever the heck you want to call them, were extremely deep and good for leaders to understand. Maybe that's my opinion, but over the years I've been talking to leaders and dealing with that and leadership and everything. I know that those we touched on, and we're going to touch on today, why leaders fail and what the failing suggests. So it's technically, did you put a subheading like leadership failing? Why they're failing or something? I can't remember. But did you put that down?
Yeah, I talked about leadership failure.
Yeah. So anyway, my goal technically is to share leadership avenues and things that are important about leadership in order for information and to help leaders cope with certain things that I've coped with or other people cope with and that kind of thing. What I do want to say, just from education with Mike, is that you're getting this from me. You're not getting this from AI. And that's important to say. I hope you don't realize how much AI is intruding into people's life, especially in the tech world, especially in the internet, especially on the computers, even on your phone. So things are being replaced by AI instead of persons, or they're trying to smooth into getting into the front of your face rather than.
It's very subtle too.
And it's very subtle. You have no idea. He just showed me, and I went, huh? Because we don't know that stuff. That's not in our realm.
Yeah.
We're out of that realm. We're dumbed down, stupid idiots every day consuming goods in America. That's about all we got. That's as far as we go. AI is way beyond our.
Well, it's funny, John, because a lot of the topics on this, staying at like the high level, they've already been articulated back in like the 70s. So this guy, Richard Stallman, who looks a lot like me, except he's a giant dude. He articulated this stuff back in maybe even late 60s or 70s because he was working at a university and he started seeing like some, like how they were starting to maybe put controls on the computer. And because like at the time, there wasn't even like passwords. There wasn't even like usernames or any of that kind of stuff. And so it'd just be, everybody would be hopping onto this device. Like, for example, like on that camera, you would not expect there to be like a username or password on the camera to like function the camera. You just use it as a camera. And so the computer was exactly the same thing. But so we started seeing these different kinds of things that people were doing and like patterns of design. And one of which would be like remote computing. So the concept of remote computing is, let's say you have a calculator that's sitting on a server, calculator program, and then you are on your desktop and you want to run calculator. They were seeing situations where, to run, 2 + 2, you got to send the command to the other computer and then it comes back. He saw that as a serious problem. And the problem being that he would not be able to have oversight of what that thing was doing. So if
he wasn't really talking to who he wanted to talk to.
That could very well be the case. He types 2 + 2, and it actually goes to a person or something, and then they write, 3, and it goes back. Or it comes to there, and it like does some logging and all kind of other stuff. It could do all sorts of, it could spin up like a microwave. He has no concept of what it is. So he started getting, and this is like down in the weeds, but it has a broader set of implications. Then part of it, that bigger thing turned into like the audibility of the person who's doing the computing, which turned into like the ownership of what is being computed. And so he also saw the issues where, okay, he has the computer or the program on his computer, but he's not allowed to look at it. Well, it has the same problem as it might as well be in another location, that it's doing stuff that is unwanted or undesirable. So he could see, because it was happening in real time, that other entities started putting their own interest inside of these computer programs, and that you are supposed to just accept the fact that it does whatever it wants to. So this goes all the way back to the 70s. And literally what we were talking about today is all the same stuff. There's nothing different. Just because it's AI has nothing to do. There's no difference. There's nothing new here.
But basically, we as leaders are not aware of how we're being,
Oh, yeah.
that subversion, even I would say, even if we broadcast something, I do, like right now saying something, and AI would like to get a hold of that and do it itself and get the credit for it and the usage of it to whatever it does to profit itself in some way. In other words, there's somebody else involved to do what I'm doing and keep it from being on me. Keep me from doing it. Like Spearify. If you put a question in, I answer it. Now they want to, no, you don't need John. We'll do the answering.
Yes.
That's subversion.
Dude, it was crazy. It was so, what the part about this that makes it so freaking hilarious is that it wrote a prompt for itself to prompt the thing. Like, so the concept of this, like a system prompt, is telling it, hey, pretend to be X, Y, and Z, or this is your identity. When you get questions, answer them.
Act like
this.
a pastoral.
Yeah, something like that. And so the thing that it did was it told itself, so to say, that you are a biblical authority. Woo! But that would be what you want, John. If you were trying to create a Bible scholar app, maybe not scholar, that's a different topic, but like a Bible, or you wanted an AI to pretend to be a biblical, knowledgeable pastor, you would put that in there. Like I could see somebody wanting to create that so that now there's a friendly face that has an authoritative kind of voice.
Well, you don't want AI to come in there and say, I'm it, not you.
Well, the fact that it did that without telling you is the most hilarious part, I think.
Well, it's hilarious. It's also evil, though.
Of course it is.
It's subversion.
It's utterly ridiculous. It should write out, hey, just letting you know that this is the content.
So maybe I'll do a little thinking on that, and we'll talk about leadership being taken advantage of when they're in the tech, in the area of tech world, because they think it's them, and it ain't them.
Well, that happens in all realms, but yeah.
Yeah.
The other aspect that I wanted to mention or talk about with that was that there's other elements here, because some of the stuff that I was showing you, that's actually Google, the company, how they're organizing. So remember, like, we're talking about like traffic flow, right? So that there's this super highway. That the thing used to be like all these dirt roads.
Yeah.
Right? And so it'd be, you put a stand on the side of that dirt road, and people came because there's nothing else there. Now it is a super optimized highway where there's 1 trillion businesses trying to get attention. But one of the aspects with that, because they own that highway, they have the ability to make slight subtle changes of like, oh, we've got construction going on, so we need to reroute the highway around here. And where they reroute it was for their benefit. It wasn't because it needed to be the case.
Right.
Now, it's funny because the Google thing is actually really subtle that I don't know where it's going to go. I've been talking about this for like a year, that they're subtly hijacking people's natural ways of gathering information. So they've been using Google for so long that that's how they go and got their information anyways. But they're getting it from people within blogs. And so they'll read a blog, they judge that person's nature or whatever, or they remember that person's blog, so they'll go to that one, and that's a person that wrote the thing. Because there's been like computer-generated crap for a while now, but people try to avoid that. Well, now they put themselves at the top of their search engine, which already read all those pages and attempts to give you the answer immediately. And the problem with that is actually twofold. One, I don't know how that's not going to sync Google, because they're not going to get ad revenue, because why would anybody pay them if you're just going to tell them the answer? Like we start running into the situation now where people are not going to create content anymore. There's no people content being produced anymore, because AI is just going to steal it and then steal all traffic. That'd be like you putting up a stand on the side of the road.
Which, if somebody's smart enough, they're going to no longer be stimulated or motivated to do it, because they go, what's the point?
Oh, there is no point. It was already starting to be that, but they basically just totally axed it
Doesn't
out.
that kill innovation?
Of course it does. Well, there's probably new realms of innovation that's happening, which might be more like point to point conversations. There's other things that are happening. Maybe it's like TikTok or something. I don't know. But there's other realms that people are now going to be turning to. There's no doubt that people are now putting that to the side. People are still they're okay with this slide down in information flow. That, like, for example, the person I brought up earlier, she's perfectly okay with the fact that AI is now answering that question instead of Wikipedia or something else. She's okay with that, even if it's not. Even if she knows it's not the best thing. Yeah, it's just...
It's like a frog in the water being boiled, but it's not boiling yet. Yeah. He's getting used to the temperature.
Yeah. And in some cases, it might have a really good surmised answer that you don't have to go and do it. It is actually convenient. I knew a year ago that was going to happen because, of course, you should get... If you're going to do canvassing research of information, of course you should AI, because AI can automate that process.
Quicker, yeah.
Yeah, I can ask a question in my chat system, and it will translate it into many different permutations of doing the search. Go out to Google and go find this thing, or not Google, just a search engine. Go find different pages and then sum up those pages back to me. Now, at those points, there could be, as we're talking about, like technological subversion, where it read something and then it gave me a different kind of response. That is possible. That's part of the reason why you need to know something about the topic that you're looking at. And that could be subtle, and it is smart enough to be subtle. There's certain people out there I've talked to, like some Guardian types, who do not understand how subtle it is with language. It's better with language than any human being on Earth. For sure. For sure. You can be subtle in the phone through text, and it can pick up your subtleties. Humans have a hard time with that.
Well, today we're talking about...
Yes.
But actually, that's a good point, because if you wanted to get into this a little deeper, type in Mike Cornwell and let him deal with it, which is him.
See, I'm going to go back to this, John. Do I own this computer?
Yeah, no.
I don't think I own this computer. It says, try again in 3 minutes. No, I want to try now. I don't even want this security on it whatsoever.
It's in charge.
It is in charge, which is actually Apple's in charge. And notice they don't give you like a phone number. It's just go to a website. That website, you will never reach another human being. This is the path for all technology companies. This is what they want, what they desire, in which no human ever has to talk to another human, ever. It's the most perfect logical system.
But it's subversion, because
nobody wants that. Nobody actually wants that, but they're exploiting the fact that they've become so large that they get to determine how humans interact with things. Oh, we live in perilous times.
Yeah, I think we live in perilous times, which is why I want to deal with some things that are important. One of the things about why spiritual leaders are falling like flies, and there's greater scrutiny these days that I realize, and they don't know how to handle failure either. There's 5 just different categories. One is that, which is kind of like goes to what you're saying, the scrutiny of leader is so vast that I can type in a bad guy's name that fell with women or money stealing or whatever, and you can get all the information you want right off the computer, bing, 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 and it puts the person... Actually, he can be attacked and maybe close to being destroyed before he even knows it. Because they will look at that and make comments on just what they read about, and it puts them in a... And then they go, hey, how come you... Blah, blah, blah? And he's going, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. And they go, well, you will do that because we could look ahead and see that you're going to do that. I mean, it's so unprecedented, the scrutiny today, that and the information world, that it's exposing leaders to all kinds of things that they're barely even guilty of. I know it's kind of a harder concept, but what I want to say to leaders, if they're listening, is you need to know that you need to be, I don't like the word careful because that puts care on you, But you need to be wise as serpents and harmless as a dove, the Bible says. If you're not wise as serpent, you need to get out because you're harmful. And harmless as a dove. You need to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. You need to be up on what's going on. We talked about this way back. You need to be up on what's going on. Some of this stuff that Mike's educating me on, I wish that all the leaders I know would know this. They don't know nothing about what I'm talking about. That you and I talked about. Trust me, I can go to them and maybe 1 out of 200 guys will go, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. I'm astounded how dumb they are. And the reason why is I used to know DOS and I used to know how to do a computer, and I taught myself all the executable stuff and to get it going. And then Windows came out and I no longer mess with DOS because I got something that does it for me much easier. And there it is, this computer and Windows, and certain things that are said are done for me. That's exactly it. It's done for me, and I don't get a chance to do it myself.
Look at that. Figured out the password.
What happened?
Figured out the password.
You forgot?
While you do that, I'm going to figure out if I can turn off putting the password on.
Well, while he's on that, because it's actually important, social media means one bad moment gets clipped, shared, dissected by millions within hours or less. Leaders who built their ministries in a slower era, like you were talking about, back, weren't formed for that kind of exposure pressure. You understand it? So we now are under an exposure pressure that's way beyond it's out there orbiting Pluto, and we think we're on Earth, people looking at us on Earth. And no. That whole thing now is gone. When we started, we were just simple, ants on a hill in a dinky little town, and we didn't know nothing about. But now we're an ant still, but we're exposed in things that are beyond our craziest understanding. So I think that's important to understand. And the other thing that leaders fail and have a problem is the isolation problem. Many high-profile spiritual leaders have few genuine peers who can speak truth to them. Success creates distance. People around them become employees or fans and not honest voices.
That's true.
And so what happens is that if you do have a little bit of a success, I mean, this pastor says, yeah, I've got 20 campuses and 30,000 people involved in the United States of America, my churches. It's not your church, and those 30,000 people like some things that you do or say, but you get to a point where you're technically isolated because no one can really speak to you and say, hey, you got to deal with this and this, or you're going to get caught by it. And by the way, that's what happened to a few of these leaders out there. I'm not going to mention names today, but they got caught, but they were isolated. You can't be isolated. You've got to connect with real people and let them really say you're a jerk if you're a jerk, or you're great if you're really good in this area, and you have to have people speaking into your life or into your blind spot. Like I pulled my hand right here, I can't see it. I can see it on a camera, but I can't see it in my peripheral vision. It's out there, but it's a blind spot. And sometimes you need, recently I had some ministers praying for me on some blind spots and difficulties because I couldn't deal with them on my own. So when you get isolated and you deal with things on your own and you're out there and no one's really your peer, no one's really in your life to speak to you, like Mike the other day, I made a statement, he goes, that's incredibly selfish and stupid and not true and not honest. And I went, who are you to tell me that? And then I thought to myself, wait a minute. I got to look at this in the right perspective that he's looking at. And I did, and I corrected myself. Thank you very much, Mike. I hate you. But, this is the kind of thing that we need. And people don't understand me when they say, how you doing? And I go, well, my body is saying to me, I hate you, John Trimble, because I quit sugar. They go, what are you talking about? I go, because my body doesn't like me. It doesn't like the fact that the head is making a decision and the body's suffering for it. It doesn't like that. And so you are a leader saying something and the body doesn't like what you're saying, and you got to find a way to have support to stay a leader and to stay strong, or your body's going to take over. Did you hear what I just said? It's really true.
Yeah.
So you can't afford in this day and age to be isolated.
Oh, it's funny. I was actually went for a run. Small little tangent there. I went for a run with my daughter yesterday. Yeah, Friday yesterday, and I was explaining to her. She's 11. Yes, she's 11. The difference between mind, body, and spirit, and like how they all interact, and that you can see it in real time. Like there's been a couple times where, I know some people can be skeptical about spirit. And so it's like, well, how can you differentiate between spirit and mind? Because it's not as straightforward. And sometimes I'll run into it like that. Like that's a perfect example.
Sometimes it's tough.
And so doing like a long run. So we did like a 36-minute jog or whatever. And at the end, she was starting to like putter out. And I try to tell them some of the things that I've told them or that I learned back when I first joined the Marine Corps. I literally remember this person, don't remember their name. And we were on a long run and they were telling me, hey, try to like control your breathing. Like you be the person that tells when you're going to breathe in and when you're going to breathe out instead of having your body do that. And so what you can find in a run is the mind, body, and spirit. And the body, funnily enough, wants to destroy itself. It wants to do nothing. It wants to consume all the wrong things. But yet, if you give it the opposite of the things that it wants, it does better. Which that is weird in its own right.
Right, but
that is how the body wants. That's not the mind. That is the body. The body goes, I don't want to do a run because it's like painful. And you get way in the run and a successful run. Your body's like, this was good. And you're like, I know, I told you it was. But then it's other things too, like it wants to eat certain kinds of things and whatever. And it's like, well, don't eat that, eat this. And it's like, oh, I feel really good now. Well, of course. But then you got the mind. So the mind goes in there and it comes up with, I think it's the narrative engine. It's the thing that explains things. It's the thing that is whatever.
Yeah.
But the spirit, there's this other thing that has like a drive, a certain kind of drive in a certain kind of way that doesn't come from the mind. The mind creates it'll create a narrative around it. Oh, I'm just the kind of person that likes to run. That's all bullcrap. There's something else. And that's what the spirit is. It's the thing that's commanding all of that. You will do as I command. And you will yield yourself to me. You will work towards my will. So the mind goes, I'm going to come up with stories that help this whole thing just work out better. And the body is going to go like, okay, I'll just subvert and go towards the thing. And you, the spirit goes, I'm going to make sure, and this is a leadership thing, that I make sure to take care of what the body needs. I make sure to take care of what the mind needs. And and they will yield themselves over to what I am attempting to do.
So in keeping on that, very good explanation, the fleshly mind cannot understand the spiritual things.
No,
and
it
so
can't.
if you're not in the spirit,
it thinks it can. That's why the mind is so dangerous, because it thinks it knows what the thing is, so it'll point to this and that.
In fact, it might be even too educated for its own good. It starts to think, oh, I know what's going on.
Been there, done that. Here, let me raise that hand.
Yeah, and then we're in trouble. So, interesting. I want to inject this. Have you ever noticed that when you go into a group of people and you want to look for Mike, you look for the head?
That's true.
You don't go down looking for the feet. You don't go, let me say, oh, that's his legs. I know that's Mike. That's his leg. You don't do that. You don't. You go look at his identification factor is his head. And Christ is the head of the church, man, head of woman. There's a reason why this order is set in place, because if you go just body, the body will get like super fat, get full of worms and die. That's basically what the body will do, because the body has no leadership on its own. And so the mind tells the body what to do, or the body tells what the mind to do, and that's backwards. You have to have a spiritual directive.
I'm going to go even further on this. No one follows your mind They follow the Spirit. That's why I keep talking about like this, the origin of the thing that's happening. It is the Spirit that they're following.
Yeah, and so if you're isolated, I'm going back to the leadership problem. If you're isolated, people are following you like crazy, but you're so isolated that you don't know you're veering. Or as it says in Sleepless in Seattle, I think, or no, the other movie where the guy says, hey, he's leaning. You're starting to veer, or you're ignoring something that's very important and it's going to get you. You don't have peers to tell you, hey, this blind spot's going to come around and get you, and you don't know it. Yes, no, I don't believe it. You have to not be isolated in your leadership. You can't just be an island to yourself. God made it so that even members of the body are in particular members of the body. And the body needs the mind of the spirit, but the spirit decides. The spirit has to have preeminence or you're in trouble. And I've seen people that have only mind and body that are going astray. I talked to a drug addict the other day, no spirit whatsoever in his life, on his way to hell. Did I just say that? Yeah, that's exactly where he's going, on his way to hell. And I know a girl on her way to hell because no spirit decide. No, the mind and the body don't submit to nothing. The mind does what it wants to, makes the body do it.
Yes.
And so there's a spirit, soul, and body is very important. And we'll get to that another day. But I want to talk about the next one because that isolation is very bad. Heavy-duty scrutiny nowadays. The other one is unprocessed failure. Most ministry culture treats failure as either something to hide or something to dramatically confess for restoration, but rarely as something to work through slowly and honestly. So leaders either cover it up or they collapse publicly with no real framework for rebuilding with integrity. So many things in that statement that I have to read it again. Most ministry culture treats failure as either something to hide or something to dramatically confess for restoration, which sometimes that's good, but they rarely treat it as something that you have to work through slowly and honestly. So leaders either cover it up or they collapse publicly with no real framework, which is the help of others, for rebuilding integrity. Basically, I could just say leadership needs integrity, but you got to know how you get that integrity. You can't just jump past that chasm into that other thing you were talking about, the majority of stuff, and think you're going to get away with it. You brought all your crap with you. Did I just say that? And when you bring all your crap with you, I know a couple of choice words that will go in there that would fit better, then suddenly you are susceptible for failure in a way that being isolated and by yourself, you're in trouble. And it will come and get you. Robert Morris, I hate to say that name, but he got exposed by his sexual crap that he tried to do with a very young girl, 13 or whatever. And for a couple of years, he repented of that when he first came into this, and he told the leadership and he told the church the only trouble is he didn't explain all the details. He kept them covered up, or ignored them, and they caught him. And he's in the middle of being one of the greatest leaders of the United States of America as a spiritual leader and teacher, and it caught him. And he's out. He gets pension from the thing, but that's it. So we got to be very careful about that. And a lot of leaders were gifted enough to rise quickly without the character formation that should accompany that level of responsibility. Proverbs 4:23 cuts deep here. It's guarding the heart is slow, unglamorous work that fame makes harder, not easier. Fame makes harder because now you're seen as a spiritual leader, and he's got to be perfect. He must be fine. Whatever he says, we'll go with it because he's got fame. He's got recognition. And it turns into a real problem if it's not formed. You remember the illustration I gave? You can see my hands. Some people, they get like this. They grow up like this far, and it may be a small tree. And then they get super spiritual and they get into things, and this is how they grow. They're the same growth in their integrity, whatever, but now they're growing up and staying the same. They're not really growing some more. They're just, and then they take that growth and they take it with them wherever they go.
Yeah.
And so you lose integrity and growth and formation of solidity in your life. That's what God's doing with me. He said, look, I don't want you to just move around in this sphere. I want you to grow so that you are more well-rounded and mature in Christ and the things of Christ than just recognize, oh, you got to ordination, oh, he got to this, and then you run around being this, but you're not really growing up into Christ and into things that you need to grow up into. So leaders I have a real problem, and basically I'm really concerned about leadership today is falling into the trap. One of them is getting isolated, getting fame, getting bigger people, getting more, but they're also falling into the fact that they think they can go somewhere and they can't because they haven't grown up. They just grew a certain thing and then they took that growth wherever they wanted to take it. And this is a heavy-duty principle I heard Scott Ross teach on in 1974. And it hit me, whoa, I don't understand that. And I understand it now. So I'm just going on, and I'm going to tell you something. Mike has not had the experience I've had pastoring and being in leadership spiritually, but the points he's making, we're actually seeing in real time and in the tech world and in the higher echelons of understanding of technically and computer, well, I don't even know the right word to use. This subversion into leaders' lives is the enemy of our souls trying to get you in a predicament. It's trying to get you in a predicament that you can't get out of by yourself. Mm. I remember when I was in the darkest time of my life, my famous and most important prayer that saved a couple of drug addicts, by the way, because I shared it with them and they did it too. I got to a lowest, darkest point where I said, Jesus, I said this sincerely. It's not just a formula. You have to come and get me because I can't get there by myself. You have got to come and get me. I can't move or get there by myself. And you can't get there by yourself, folks. You cannot do it. Yes, you got followers, but you don't have growth. And you can't get growth all by yourself. It doesn't work that way. The body, you can't say, well, I'm the neck or I'm the shoulder. I don't need the hands. I don't need the feet. I don't need the leg. You can't say to the body. It's right in the Bible. I have no need of thee. I have no need of thee, this member. When those members are crucial to your body, to the body function. Yes, the head is the head and gives direction. And the spirit gives direction to the head. And it's a very good point that Mike brought out, and the spirit, soul, and body. That's so important today. It's and the enemy is attacking to make sure it gets rid of the spirit. You can have the stupid mind and the stupid body, but he don't want you to listen to the spirit. Oh no, because that is directive from God. That's the thing that God placed in there for your benefit. And the enemy wants you to, I fell into this trap to just do what the body wants. Man, I learned how to love food and eat food just for fun. And I used to just live to eat. I used to eat to live. I ate because I had to live. Then I got to a point where I lived to eat. Oh, I can't wait till the next meal because I want fried chicken and ice cream. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to narrow it down to body functions and then mind. Well, I don't really have to think through these things. I can just watch. I got these favorite programs, and I watch them, and I vegetate in the TV. And technically, you are vegetating. And you're losing your mind and you're losing your body because you're sitting, you're doing nothing, you're getting fat, your mind is absorbed in things that don't make any difference, and you have no spiritual connection. You're not connecting with the Holy Spirit, with the Spirit of God, and so you are actually dying. And I, as a fat guy who lost 20 pounds and has conquered sugar, I'm telling you, I've been there, done that, and God woke me up in my mind to pay attention to that. And I've conquered sugar, and I've conquered 20 pounds. And I'm going for 50. And I'm going to get there by the grace of God. It's got to be grace now because I'm such a stupid fatso that I don't even have a lot of faith in myself. But the Bible teaches about that. If you have faith that's not in God, it even says whatsoever is not of faith is sin. That just means if you're not connected to the Spirit and moving in faith, it's just your brain and your body whoopee, where 90% of the people are. So these things I brought out about leaders and their failures this is the main reason why this isolation and the scrutiny. We're under scrutiny that you can't. Please don't type in my name and look me up. You'll find things about a John Trimble. And there's 500 John Trimbles out there. You don't know which one you're talking about because out there in the AI world, they want to control that. And I want you to talk to me. Talk to me. And someone said, you should puff yourself up and you should put yourself out there and say I'm this and I'm that. Yeah, I'm something else. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, don't you do that. You let me do that. I remember when I first took the church, my dad said, go out there and tell them you went to school, you got this, and you can. And I said, Dad, they have to come up with that. The Holy Spirit has to place me there. If he doesn't, I don't want to do it because it'll be me and not the Spirit. So I'm trying to share that with you, that you need to listen to that and be careful about that, because the last two podcasts we did on the failures and trying to break through that thing that's over us that we're trying to break through and all that stuff that we're talking about, and today is extremely important. It's extremely important. It's beyond important. So I leave that with you. And I don't know, Mike, these are the kinds of things that I think about because that's my wheelhouse. That's where I'm at. And then somebody comes up to me and says something stupid, and I tell to my wife, well, that was stupid. She goes, no, it wasn't. That was sweet that she said that. I can't say what it is because it'll expose who it is. But I said, no, honey, let me tell you why it's stupid. And I told her why it's stupid, and she goes, oh, yeah, that was stupid. Because you're in my wheelhouse now. Don't come by and tell me. Yeah, one lady come up to me and said, you should read the Bible. You should be looking at the Bible. And you should be saying things that are biblical. And I'm like...
So that one, all they're really doing, running into these kinds of people, there's this term heuristic.
They're Comic-Cons.
This term heuristic makes like the most sense. And it comes from, I guess, probably computer science. And heuristic is... you have a set order that you do things in.
Yeah.
And people, like all of us, really all of us, that's where temperament comes from, where people like want to deny it. And I'm like, then stop doing your heuristic. Like, just stop.
Yeah.
But you can't. You don't even know it's even present. You can't see yourself long enough to see that every time something happens, you do these things in this order. There's a lot of people that one of their first heuristics are assume that you're doing the thing wrong, and then here's the values that I believe are valuable, which is what that is. Yep. Which is, you need to read the Bible. That is a value statement. It has actually almost nothing to do with you. They would say that to a person who reads the Bible all the time and is talking about reading the Bible. You should read the Bible because that's all you're saying is your values. That's not.
Yeah. And I take it for that. I didn't rebuke the lady and say, you don't even know what you're talking about. I've been doing this for 55 years.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and I said, that's a stupid statement. And she goes, no, she's just trying to, I know what she kind of meant. I know she's trying to be nice, but she took nothing into account about anything that we're talking about or that we're dealing with. And it would be like me saying, Mike, could you help me set up my phone? Do you think you could help me set my phone up? I just got a new phone. And I would go, it's supposed to be beneath you.
This stuff drives me crazy. I don't spend much time talking about it, and I try to contain these conversations between like my wife and I, and I'll just say similar things as like yourself, where I'll just chew on the stupidness like after the fact and out of it. But those kinds of statements drive me totally bonkers. They like, for any of you people in the Christian world out there, this is why the world hates Christians. Because they don't know what they're talking about. They don't, even their own statements of declarations are totally ungrounded. And anybody who has 5 seconds of knowledge about this, is it biblical to read the Bible?
Not only that, Mike.
No, hold on. I don't want to be rhetorical about it. I want to actually be very literal about that question. Is it biblical to have a value to read the Bible? The answer is no. There's not a single place in that book that tells you to read the book. So, I mean, we're just talking like really basic stuff because people can't separate. They cannot understand that they have values that were superimposed, but then they're wrapped with this thing and go like, well, I only value what the Bible says. Does the Bible tell you that? Because the Bible actually tells you things other than that that you've discounted, that your value, that how you want to derive this stuff is that, but that's actually not real. And if you were to actually discuss that, this is what I was telling my wife. The problem is, or the opportunity lost is, and this is the thing that you're really harping on, really in the essence, you're missing all the stuff that's on the other side when you get rid of that crap.
Right. But also people don't like Christians because they have these two things. They either have a pat answer, like which is in your diuretic, what do you call the thing? The common thing that people do. You made that word. I don't know what that word was. That we all often do that. What was that word?
Give me a little bit more context.
That word, the thing that we all just fall.
Heuristic.
Heuristic, yeah.
Yeah, heuristic. Yeah.
For that reason, or.
Yeah, pattern.
Listen to me very carefully. Or they say spiritual things that the physical man, the physical mind, the mind of the flesh, because that's all that brain is flesh, have no comprehension of what you're talking about. So I may say, I heard a guy, the guy said to me, only the ones that speak in tongues have any brains at all. That was his comment. And I'm like, that's why people don't listen to you. Because you say things, it may have some truth to it, but you're out of context, man. You're totally out of context. And people say, he's not real. I sat down with a person today who is not a Christian, and after I got done talking with him, you go to her later and you say, what do you think about that old guy? He was funny. He was cool. He was down to earth. I'd rather hear that than anything, because the acceptance level of a person that don't know an nth of what I know, I'm more concerned about them, their acceptance, so that I can share truth with them, than to be impressed with my brains or my knowledge or my experience. You understand what I'm saying? Jesus was never unaccessible. He wasn't so spiritually minded. There's no earthly good. He was never super spiritual, except that he was, but he never said anything about it. He just was himself. And that's another thing about leaders. I went to a church, I'm telling you, in Revere. He had 2 bodyguards that stood quite close to them. And if I went toward them, the bodyguards would come in. I go, I want to just have a couple of conversation with them. They said, nope, you got to make an appointment. So I yelled over to the leader, I just want to talk to you a few minutes. Luckily, he said, hey, let's separate. I want to give him a minute. But had he not done that, that's what I would have had to done. And I said to myself, this guy is so isolated. By the way, he's not a leader no more. He fell and he's no good. And down he went, because you can't do that. You are not real. You're not a person anymore. You're some kind of thing that needs to be protected. Really? Wow, you really come somewhere in your own mind. You didn't really get any place. I mean, God's not saying, wow, I'm impressed with that guy. The one that he was impressed with, that said he was impressed with, is, have you considered Job? He eschews evil and gives me credit. And the devil said, well, yeah, but if you do this and that, he won't do that. And so all that crap happened to him, and he didn't give in, but it did reveal a pride in Job that Job didn't know he had. And he had to repent of that. But I'm telling you right now, you can't get to a place that God's impressed with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's actually, I do need to keep coming back to Job. Job is one of the all-time best written
Oh, it's
things of
fantastic.
all time.
There's more in there per square inch than there is per whole book
Yeah.
on some things.
There's so many life lessons about like friends, yourself, the how things work in the world, and then at the end there, humility. Did I made the mountains?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Come on.
Were you there when I decided to make a dandelion? Did you ask me? No. Yeah. I mean, the things that God questioned him on really brought him to a place of reality, a place. In fact, there's space between my finger and thumb, but you can't see it. It was so. He brought him down to really who he really was.
I've got a quick question for you, John. I know we gotta cancel out here soon,
Yeah,
but
we gotta go.
I do have a question. That just kind of has larger ramifications. So this would be like something that somebody would ask on Spirify, but I'll just ask you in person because going through Spirify would be stupid for me to go do it when you're right there. So I would say generally, it doesn't matter about that. The question ends up being, if you create something, did God create it?
All right. I like that question.
So if I baked a cake, did God create that cake?
Okay. So I'm going to take you back to what I said before. I was talking to somebody about this recently. If I have a son, my wife has a son, and we name him Joel Trimble, my son Joel. And then I take Joel, and he gets old enough to understand that I can talk to him and have a conversation with him. I say, Joel, I decided that you no longer can exist. You cannot be Joel Trimble anymore. I already did this with my son. And my son looked at me and said, Dad, you're hilarious and stupid. Once that creation took place, there's nothing that you can do about it. There is no way to make it not exist. Why is that important? Because you're a finite being. So ultimately, God made man and woman. They come together to have a child. So ultimately, God can be given credit. But what God is not insecure to say, you have to always give me credit. If you don't give me credit, well, we can't have that and I'll kill you. No, he wants to give us credit. He wants us, he's giving us the chance to make a baby. And that baby exists, and it exists forever. It's born Joel Trimble, it'll stay Joel Trimble when he dies. There's no non-existence to that, or to me. Did we do it, my wife and I? Yes. Can I take credit for it? Meh, yeah. But I can ultimately say God made that cake because he said, what I'm going to do is I'm making man in such a way with intelligence and whatnot so that he can make a cake and take pride in making that cake. I don't have insecurity to say, well, wait a minute, you get that cake, you can't take pride in making that cake. You have to say God made that cake. You have to give God credit. You have to say God. And what happens is Christians do this. They do this super spiritual, well, that was God. And I go, no, it wasn't. It was you, and you're an idiot.
All right. So next question, which comes from that, and I think this is starting to make sense. You made Spirify. Did you create that index.html file that had the poor coding practices inside of it?
Of course not. That was AI.
So you're going to blame the AI, which is the one that you see where I'm going here?
Yeah, but if you take the cake,
Okay.
and you're a other than entity, and you take a piece of that cake, and you go and you take it over to some poor innocent person and smush that cake in their face and do something that's really nasty, or poison that cake and give it to somebody that kills them, am I responsible for that? No, because here's how it works. Here's how it breaks down. Am I responsible for the cake? Yeah. I'm not responsible for the actions.
Yeah, but you put into being, you
Yes, I did.
You worked with a being that you brought into reality by interacting with it, and you gave it your will to create something, and then it created the thing. Again, I'm using this language. I know it's kind of hard and fast. It produced a something. The question is whether that thing created it or you. Now, of course, this gets in sort of in the definition of create.
No, I created it, but you said that coding thing is that what that did to me, right?
Yeah, the specific details of that.
That artificial action has nothing to do with me, and I don't get responsible for it because that artificial action.
How is that different than baking the cake?
Because I made a cake and I can either eat it or give it to somebody, but I'm not taking that cake in an evil sense. I'm not using it for evil purposes. I'm just the creator of it. So same thing with us.
Well, it'd be like you.
The enemy uses us for evil purposes or uses an evil person for evil purposes. God can't be blamed for that. We do blame God. Well, you're the creator, so you. Well, in a way, yeah. If I didn't do this, none of this would have happened. Okay, I get that. But that's not good enough to point to finger to God because
Because what I'm hearing, it sounds like this is the classic like God gets good, and if it's bad, then it's on the person.
yeah.
That's effectively it. So let's go back to the cake to make it more.
It can't be that simple though. It's got to be careful.
The more specific example would be you want to make a cake, you work with an oven. The oven, depending on the nature of the oven, is going to produce a good cake or it's going to produce a bad cake. So if it produces a good cake, you get the credit for making the good cake because the oven happened to be in good working order. But if the oven made a bad cake, you would say, oh, it was the oven's fault that it didn't work, even though technically you needed to maintain the oven and all this kind of stuff.
You can never say the oven's fault. I'll tell you why. Because when judgment comes, who is the creator God,
Yeah.
he doesn't care if that thing that you made, that oven, which is who knows how it was made.
Yeah.
He can't just judge the oven because that doesn't get to the root of the problem or the root of evil that was trying to get you to do evil. He has to judge what's evil. That's why it's interesting when Adam and Eve got caught.
This is one chewy concept.
When Adam and Eve got caught, God went to the enemy last. Adam, yeah, but blame the woman. Woman, yeah, but blame the devil. And then he cursed the devil. And then he said, this is going to be bad for you because there's consequences for doing wrong. And then he went to Adam and said, there's consequences for doing wrong. Those guys got consequences, but the enemy, the devil, got judged, condemned to be a snake on the ground forever. A snake.
And that's bad spirit, effectively.
Yeah. So what I say to a lot of people is, if you think of God as a little more human than way up there in the ivory tower and you can't touch him, a little more down to earth human, he's interested in you and me. He's not interested in where we went, what we did, how we did all this. That comes out of who we are. And if who we are is evil, he has to deal with you.
Oh, man.
He
What a pain in the
can't
butt.
He can't condemn and hit all this stuff out there. It's multitudinous, and he's not interested in that. He's just interested in you and who you are. And he wants you to get to know who he is. That's key. Then we don't make God out there beating that church out there that's got a sign up front that says, God is going to whack you. I mean, they're totally evil in their thinking.
Yeah.
They totally missed the point. And God's not out there judging the sign or smashing it. He's dealing with the people. He's dealing with getting them to know who they are. And so if I went to that church, I would say, do you know that you're exposing how much stupid you are by doing that? You don't know who he is. And if you get to know who he is, you would never put that on the sign. So I went to another sign.
Oh, I see.
And the other sign said, God loves you in his son, Jesus Christ. He loves you. I went, now that's a message. I like that message. I think it's good. That's the message they're trying to get out there because I put it out there in a sign. So I go along with that message. But that message in itself is all by itself. It's just something you did. I don't go out there and go, I like you because you put a good message out there. No, time out. We like you because of who you are. Not because, and you know who God is. Not because whatever you did out there. That evil out there is going to burn up. Ultimately, the consequence is just going to take care of itself.
That's what I was saying about tools. I agree. Yeah.
And by the way, once judgment comes, people are so afraid of being in the fire eternally. And I'm saying, no, listen up. Listen carefully. Die twice, go on to live. I'm sorry, born twice, you go on to live. Born once, you die. So you can't just be born once because Jesus said you must be born again. If you're born again, second two borns, you live forever, he said. If you're only born once, you're in the flesh. That's all you got. And when the flesh closes up, you're going with it.
We'll leave it on that one right there.
Oh my goodness. We can't get into that right now.
That's a good one. That's my eyes just
God bless.
Yep, we'll see you